The silent watchers break their vow. The first crimson rays of Valkyrie's twin suns painted the crystal spires of luminous city in shades of blood. It was an omen that Elder Siren would remember for the rest of her days. The peaceful Valkyrie had spent millennia cultivating their world into a paradise of art, philosophy, and harmonious living. They had no word for war in their language. They were about to learn it in the most brutal way possible. The Tyrak Empire's assault ships descended through the atmosphere like metallic locusts, their plasma cannons already charging. The Valkyrie's defensive shields, designed more for meteor protection than warfare, crumbled within minutes. Buildings that had stood for thousands of years turned to molten glass. Gardens that contained the last specimens of extinct flora from across the galaxy burned to ash. In the grand chambers of the Galactic Senate, located safely in neutral space, the attack was being monitored with clinical detachment. Senator Krex of the Altarian Commonwealth adjusted his ceremonial robes as holographic displays showed the destruction in real time. "The neutral zone protocol is absolute," he declared to the assembled representatives. "No interference in sovereign EB territorial disputes. This has kept our galaxy stable for 10,000 standard cycles." The Valkyrie ambassador Joran stood trembling before the assembly. His usually luminescent skin had dimmed to a sickly gray. "My people are being slaughtered. We have no military, no weapons. We chose the path of peace." "And that was your choice," Senator Krex replied coldly. "The protocol exists to prevent larger conflicts. If we intervene here, where does it end? Every minor skirmish could escalate into galactic war." Joran's desperate pleas echoed through subspace communications to every civilized world. Most turned away, bound by treaties and politics. The mighty Centaurian fleet remained in dock. The Vegan Defense Force stayed silent. Even the warrior culture of the Rigellans, who privately admired the Valkyrie's artistic achievements, would not violate the protocol. On Valkyrie Prime, the Tyrak ground forces had landed. Their war beasts, genetically modified monstrosities standing 3 meters tall, tore through refugee columns. The Tyrak didn't want to conquer, they wanted to exterminate. The Valkyrie's crime? Refusing to sell their planet's unique crystalline formations, which the Tyrak needed for their weapons technology. Young Valkyrie huddled in underground shelters, listening to the thunderous footsteps above. Parents sang ancient lullabies to calm their children, even as the ceiling dust rained down with each explosion. The planet's fauna, evolved for beauty rather than survival, fled in panic or died where they stood. Then, something changed. Deep space monitoring stations detected an anomaly at the system's edge. Hundreds of signatures appeared simultaneously, as if a massive fleet had dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect synchronization. The configuration was unlike anything in the Senate's databases. The ships were smaller than standard dreadnoughts, but moved with coordinated precision that suggested advanced tactical programming. The lead vessel transmitted on all frequencies. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. Valkyrie Prime is now under our protection. All hostile forces have 12 minutes to withdraw." The Tyrak commander, War Prince Grath, laughed over the comm channels. "Earth, the species that abandoned the Galactic Senate 5 years ago? You have no authority here. You're not even a recognized military power anymore." Admiral Chen's response was calm but carried an edge of steel. "We don't need authority. We have conscience." The Earth fleet didn't wait for further discussion. What followed defied conventional space warfare doctrine. Instead of forming standard battle lines, Earth ships scattered into seemingly chaotic patterns. Tyrak targeting computers struggled to establish firing solutions, as the human vessels performed maneuvers that should have torn their hulls apart. The first Earth strike wasn't against the Tyrak fleet, but their communication network. Specialized, electronic warfare ships, names like Whisper and Shadow Dance, released clouds of microscopic drones that infiltrated Tyrak systems. Within minutes, their fleet coordination collapsed. Next came the fighters, not the bulky, heavily armored craft favored by other species, but sleek, agile interceptors that danced between enemy fire. Human pilots, products of Earth's competitive, gaming culture turned military training revolution, exploited every weakness in Tyrak formations, They flew with an unpredictability that no AI could anticipate. On the surface, Special Forces teams deployed via stealth dropships. These weren't the gene-enhanced super soldiers other species favored, but regular humans with extraordinary training and determination. They used guerrilla tactics learned from Earth's own bloody history: ambushes, sabotage, and psychological warfare. Marine Sergeant Jake Thompson led one such team through the ruins of Luminous City. His squad located a shelter filled with Velkhari civilians just as Tyrak war beasts approached. The humans didn't hesitate. Using a combination of precise sniper fire and improvised explosives made from Tyrak equipment, they held the line. When ammunition ran low, they fought with combat knives and bare hands. The Velkhari watched in amazement as these strange bipeds, smaller than most galactic species, faced down monsters without fear. When Sergeant Thompson took a plasma burn to his shoulder, he merely grunted, applied a field dressing, and kept fighting. "Nobody dies on my watch," he growled, pulling a frightened Velkhari child behind cover. In space, the battle had turned. Earth's capital ships finally revealed from behind their fighter screens, unleashed weapons that made Tyrak engineers weep. Kinetic railguns accelerated projectiles to percentages of light speed. Missile swarms overwhelmed point defense systems. But the true innovation was in their shields. Instead of static barriers, Earth used layered, rotating defensive fields that adapted to incoming fire patterns. The Tyrak war prince watched his seemingly invincible fleet crumble. His tactical displays showed something impossible. Earth ships were predicting his moves, countering strategies before he could implement them. What he didn't know was that Earth's military AI wasn't just calculating probabilities. It was learning, evolving, thinking creatively in ways that mimicked its human creators. As the Tyrak began their retreat, abandoning their ground forces, Admiral Chen opened a channel to the Galactic Senate. Her face appeared on screens across known space, calm but resolute. Behind her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. "The neutral zone protocol protects the powerful while sacrificing the innocent," she said. "Earth withdrew from your Senate because we couldn't stomach watching genocide in the name of bureaucracy. We've spent these 5 years preparing because we knew someday, somewhere, someone would need help that you wouldn't give." Senator Krex's response was broadcast moments later. "Earth has violated sacred law. There will be consequences, Admiral." Chen's smile was sad but determined. "There always are. The question is, are you willing to live with yours?" The first part of the battle was over, but the war for the soul of the galaxy had just begun. On Velkhari Prime, humans and natives stood together in the rubble, looking up at the sky where Earth's ships held vigilant watch. Elder Siren approached Sergeant Thompson, who was sharing his rations with Velkhari children. "Why?" she asked simply. "Why risk everything for strangers?" Thompson looked up, his young face already bearing the weight of too much war. "Ma'am, where I come from, we have a saying. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. We might be newcomers to your galaxy, but we're not new to doing what's right." As night fell, the twin suns setting, behind smoke and destruction, the first human medical ships began their descent. The galaxy would never be the same. Part 2. When rules meant nothing to those who cared. The weeks following Earth's intervention transformed Velkhari Prime into a symbol of defiance against the Galactic Senate's cold bureaucracy. Human engineering. Crews worked alongside Velkhari artists to rebuild not just structures but hope itself. The crystal spires rose again, but now they incorporated Earth defensive technology. Beauty and strength united. Captain Maria Rodriguez of the Earth Medical Corps stood in what remained of Velkhari's largest hospital. Her team had been working 20-hour shifts, treating wounded civilians with a dedication that puzzled many galactic observers. To humans, it was simple duty. To the Velkhari, it was a revelation. "Your people heal the enemy wounded as well," Elder Siren observed, watching Rodriguez tend to a captured Tyrak soldier. Rodriguez didn't look up from her work. "They're not our enemy once they're wounded. They're patients. Besides, today's enemy might be tomorrow's ally. We learned that the hard way on Earth." The Galactic Senate convened in emergency session. The Grand Chamber, a architectural marvel floating in the void between galaxies, buzzed with outrage and fear. Species that had maintained comfortable neutrality, for millennia now faced an uncomfortable question. If humans would intervene for the Velkari, who might be next? Senator Krex led the charge for sanctions against Earth. They must be declared a rogue state. Their fleet must be disbanded. They threaten the very foundation of our civilization. But something unexpected happened. The Therian representative, whose people had suffered a similar fate 3 centuries ago with no intervention, stood up. The humans did what we all should have done. The protocol protected us from war, but at what cost? How many worlds have we watched burn? The debate raged for days, broadcast across the galaxy. On Earth, people watched with a mixture of pride and apprehension. They knew the cost of their choice but stood firm. President Elena Vasquez addressed the United Earth Parliament. We didn't leave our cradle and reach for the stars just to become bystanders to genocide. If the galaxy condemns us for having a conscience, so be it. The truth about Earth's withdrawal from the Senate began to emerge through leaked diplomatic cables and whistleblower testimony. 5 years ago, humanity had watched the Senate vote against intervening in the Nexari cleansing, where an entire species was wiped out for refusing to share their biological distinctiveness with the hegemony collective. Earth's representatives had argued, pleaded, and finally walked out in disgust. Since then, Earth had been preparing, not for conquest, but for the moment when someone, somewhere, would need help that wouldn't come from official channels. They'd studied every military doctrine in the galaxy, then thrown most of them away. They'd recruited their best and brightest not with promises of glory, but with a simple question. When the moment comes, will you stand up for those who can't? On Velkari Prime, humans and Velkari were writing a new chapter in interstellar relations. Language barriers fell as translation technology improved. Cultural exchanges flourished. Velkari artists created monuments to their human defenders, while human children learned Velkari meditation techniques in newly established schools. Private. Lisa Wong sat with a Velkari elder named Tevin, sharing tea made from earth herbs grown in Velkari soil. Your people fight with such ferocity, Tevin noted, yet show such gentleness afterward. It's paradoxical. Lisa smiled. We've had a lot of practice being paradoxical. We're capable of great violence and great compassion, often at the same time. The trick is knowing when to use which. But the Tyrak Empire wasn't finished. In the depths of their home system, War Prince Grath supervised the activation of their ultimate weapon, the Void Hammer. This massive construct could create artificial singularities, turning entire planets into collapsed matter. It was banned by every treaty, considered too horrific even for war. But humiliation burned hotter than law in Grath's mind. Intelligence networks buzzed with rumors. Earth's reconnaissance detected the energy signatures, but couldn't determine the exact nature of the threat. Admiral Chen convened her staff aboard the flagship Persistence. Whatever they're building, it's big, reported Commander James Liu, head of intelligence. Energy readings are off the scale. If they're desperate enough to use banned weapons, Chen nodded grimly. Then we need to be ready for anything. Alert all ships and send a message to Earth. Operation Hail Mary is authorized. Operation Hail Mary was Earth's last resort, a plan so audacious that even human strategists considered it insane. But as reports came in of the Void Hammer moving toward Velkari space, insane seemed appropriate. The Tyrak fleet returned in force, the Void Hammer at its center like a metallic cancer among the stars. It was enormous, dwarfing even their largest dreadnoughts. Its very presence distorted spacetime, causing nearby objects to experience temporal fluctuations. War Prince Grath broadcast to the galaxy. See what defying the natural order brings. Earth's interference has doomed the Velkari. Their world will become a monument to the price of breaking the protocol. Admiral Chen's response was swift. The only monument here will be to your defeat. All ships, engage Hail Mary protocols. What happened next entered galactic legend. Earth's entire fleet, over 300 vessels, began to accelerate toward the Void Hammer, not to attack it, but to ram it. Each ship's reactor was rigged to overload on impact, creating a chain reaction that would, theoretically, destabilize the weapons containment field. But that wasn't the real plan. As the Tyrak focused on the incoming kamikaze fleet, small stealth ships slipped through their lines. These vessels carried humanity's most desperate gambit, not weapons, but diplomats, and scientist Dr. Yuki Tanaka led one such team. Their mission: board the Void Hammer and try to reason with its crew. It was insane, suicidal, and utterly human. As her ship latched onto the weapon's hull, she turned to her team. "Remember, we're not here to fight. We're here to show them another way." The boarding teams faced fierce resistance, but they didn't return fire. Instead, they used non-lethal weapons and, more importantly, words. They carried video messages from Tyrak prisoners of war on Velkari Prime, showing how they were being treated with dignity. They brought medical data showing how human doctors had saved Tyrak lives. Meanwhile, the suicide run continued. Ship after ship impacted the Void Hammer's shields, each explosion bringing the barrier closer to collapse. Earth crews sang over open channels, old songs from humanity's warrior past, new anthems of hope for the future. The galaxy listened in stunned silence as humans chose death over allowing genocide. On the Void Hammer's bridge, something unprecedented occurred. A Tyrak engineer, moved by the translated songs and the boarding team's message of mercy, refused to initialize the firing sequence. Others joined him. Civil war erupted aboard the weapon as some Tyrak chose conscience over orders. War Prince Grath, faced with mutiny and the imminent collision of Earth's remaining fleet, made a fateful decision. He activated the Void Hammer prematurely, before it could target Velkari Prime. The weapon began to consume itself, its artificial singularity turning inward. Admiral Chen, her own ship on a collision course, gave her final order. "All ships, break off. Get clear of the gravitational distortion." Most of the Earth fleet managed to veer away, but 17 ships too close to change course were caught in the weapon's death throes. They disappeared into the artificial black hole along with the Void Hammer and a third of the Tyrak fleet. The aftermath was chaos and then silence. The great weapon was gone, taking with it over 1,000 human lives and the Tyrak's military advantage. War Prince Grath, his flagship barely escaping the singularity, ordered full retreat. In the following days, as the galaxy processed what had happened, perspectives shifted. The Galactic Senate faced a crisis of conscience. The Velkari began teaching other peaceful species about Earth defense technologies. Some Tyrak, shaken by their own actions and humanity's sacrifice, sued for peace. A memorial service was held on Velkari Prime for the human crews who died. Elder Siren spoke to a gathering of millions, both present and watching across the galaxy. They showed us that rules and protocols mean nothing if they protect evil. They taught us that sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest. But, most importantly, they proved that compassion and strength are not opposites but companions. The Galactic Senate voted to revise the Neutral Zone Protocol, adding provisions for humanitarian intervention. Earth was offered full membership again with apologies. President Vasquez's response became famous. "We don't need your approval to do what's right, but we'll accept your partnership in making sure no one stands alone again." 6 months later, as reconstruction continued on Velkari Prime, a young human engineer named David Park worked alongside Velkari builders to raise a new crystal spire. This one was different. It incorporated designs from Earth, Velkari, and surprisingly, Tyrak architecture. It was called the Unity Spire, and its multiphasic crystal structure created a light show that could be seen from orbit. At its dedication ceremony, Admiral Chen, now bearing scars from her final battle, stood with Elder Siren and, remarkably, former War Prince Grath, who had renounced his title and sought redemption. Together, they activated the spire's light array. The message, it pulsed into space, was simple, broadcast in every known language: never again, never alone. The galaxy had learned a powerful lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous species aren't those with the biggest weapons or the strongest fleets. Sometimes they're the ones who simply refuse to look away when others are suffering. Humanity had shown that true strength comes not from following rules blindly, but from knowing when to break them. As the twin suns set on Velkari Prime, painting the sky in gentler hues than that first crimson dawn, children of multiple species played, together in the shadows of the rebuilt cities. They were growing up in a galaxy forever changed by the stubborn idealism of a species that everyone had underestimated. Earth's message was clear. In a universe full of watchers, someone had to be willing to act. And humanity, for all its flaws and contradictions, had volunteers. The treaty had forbidden intervention. But when the choice was between following rules and saving lives, Earth had made its position crystal clear. They sent their fleet anyway. And in doing so, they didn't just save a world, they saved the galaxy's soul.